What's up, folks? My name is Ethan Sachs, aka Lord Tupperware, one of the co-hosts from the Lords of Limited Magic podcast, and I'm here today to bring you a sealed strategy video for the Brothers War on Magic Arena. And we're not doing just any old sealed event here. We're doing the Arena Open Day 1. So there are not only constructed competitive events on Arena, but there's also competitive limited events. And they're often split into Day 1, Day 2, where Day 1 is sealed, Day 2 is draft. So here we've got the Brothers War Arena Open. This is Thanksgiving weekend. Let's dive right in and see what we open in our pool. So for sealed, what happens is you open 6 booster packs, and you're going to use those boosters to build a 40-card minimum deck. Try and beat your opponents in best of 1. It's first to 7 wins or 3 losses and you're out. Now, sealed, if you've never played it before, it's a little different than draft, right? Draft, you get to take a card out of a pack. You sort of get to sculpt your deck. You have a lot more ownership over what you're getting to build. In sealed, there's a bit more of an interesting puzzle, right? But you have a finite amount of cards. You're not really going to get to see a sweet rare and go, ooh, I'm going to build around that or whatever, or force a color or force a deck. You're really going to have to figure out what the best combination of cards from your 6 packs is. The Brothers War as an artifact set is kind of interesting. It throws a little twist into things because you're going to get access to a lot of colorless cards. So more than you would in a normal set. Now, obviously there are some, with Prototype or Unearth, there are color requirements to a lot of the colorless cards. But even with the retro artifacts, something like Wormcoil Engine you might run into in your own packs, hopefully not on the other side of the battlefield, but you're going to see some colorless bombs or colorless cards or colorless fixing. All that stuff is going to be bumped up in an artifact set than it would be, in an otherwise normal limited environment. So hopefully we can use that to our benefit. The other thing that Sealed offers is rares. You only get to work with 6 rares. Now with the retro artifacts, you might have some more. I think here we're going to have one more to look at. I did pre-record this video so we could pause and talk about some interesting spots or whatever when we get to them. Didn't want to feel rushed in the moment. So here for the build, Arena opens them up for you. You get to see all your shiny rares at once. We've got kind of a nice mix here, if I'm being honest. What's really awesome about them is that Platoon Dispenser and Steel Seraph are 2 of the best cards in the set, honestly. And we've got Urza, Prince of Krug, with synergizes with artifacts. Synergizes very nicely with Platoon Dispenser, specifically in that this makes 1/1 tokens. This makes all those tokens into 3/3s. And then Urza obviously can copy Steel Seraph or Platoon Dispenser if we're trying to just win super hard. So obviously, what I'm looking at immediately when I open this is, oh my goodness, please, please, please let me have enough good white cards so I can play these rares. And now, at the very least, I'll play these cards no matter what, right? A 5-mana 4/6 that's going to draw me extra cards, that's great. 6-mana 5/4 with flying that then gives these other bonuses, flying, vigilance, or lifelink to another creature when it attacks. That's also great. If I can't make Urza work, I can't make Urza work. These other rares are okay. I think Awaken the Woods quite strong. If we end up playing green, I'll almost certainly want to play Awaken the Woods. Making a scalable card like this is quite strong. Brotherhood's End is really good as a nice little mini sweeper. Not every deck wants that. The more aggressive your deck is, the less you're going to want that kind of effect. And then Mishra's Foundry as a creature land. Those are all nice if you can afford a colorless land in your deck. Mana bases for limited are a little sketchier than constructed mana bases if you've never built them. So you really want to make sure that if you're slotting in a colorless land, that you can afford to do so. But this is what I'm taking away from these packs here is, all right, we got some good rares. We won the lottery in that respect. Now let's see what the rest of our pool has to offer. So when you open up your pool here, you're going to get your cards sorted like this. Now, you can use the Arena interface. You can build your deck like this, or you can drag some cards to the main deck, save that deck to your collection, and export it to a number of different sites that help you build the deck elsewhere. You can save images, etc. I like to build it just in Arena. I think that's totally fine. So we'll scroll through and see what the different colors have to offer for us. For white, I'm already sort of happy here. There are a number of things I'm trying to check off with my sealed decks. Unlike draft decks, if you're a limited player, if you've dabbled in the limited arena, as it were, unlike draft decks where you can really lean into what the archetypes do, if it's red-black sacrifice or blue-black draw to or white-blue soldiers, you can really lean into what those decks are doing in Brothers War. In Sealed, you're much more, you just work with what you get effectively. And so what that means for us, is we're trying to check a bunch of boxes. Do we have power? Well, we already know that we do because we have those incredible colorless, but ideally white rares to really maximize on the prototype activation for the Seraph, and for the other, we get to activate the Unearth ability and the Soldier token making ability. So hopefully our white supports that. So do we have power? Yes, we do. Do we have removal? You're going to need interaction for your opponent's stuff. Now, this is true in all sealed formats. Now, in draft, set to set, removal is way more important, or, you can sort of, it's a dime a dozen, it's over costed, whatever. You don't want to spend 5 mana sorcery to just kill a thing, or to have a deal 4, deal 3 to something. You don't want conditional removal like that. But for sealed, you really want to be able to interact. And in a set like this, where you can expect your opponents to have colorless bombs a lot of the time, you definitely need to be able to interact. And that means things like disenchant, or even the green shoot down, right? Blow up an artifact, enchantment, or a creature with flying. That's going to be great for you here. Already I can see we don't have any disenchants in white, but that's okay. I see 2 copies of Prison Sentence and 1 copy of Static Net. So that's making me feel really good. There's some removal there, a couple of pieces of interaction, and I'm already seeing a good curve of creatures. We even have Deadly Riposte as another piece of interaction there. 2 Power Stone Engineers and 2 Ambush Paratroopers. Those both sort of fit in different genres, if you will. Moving on to this next page here, we see the Platoon Dispenser and the Steel Seraph. We know those are great. And even a Combat Thresher, another nice prototype creature in white, as either a 7 mana 3/3 double strike draw card, or 3 mana 1/1 double strike draw card. So with this cursory glance, knowing I have the Dispenser and the Seraph, I'm pretty sure that we're going to be playing white. So let's move on to see what our blue offers us. Not a ton here. I don't love any of these cards. I like Combat Courier. Fine. That's a nice one. Remember, we might want to do some soldier stuff if we're pairing blue with white. We have Air Marshal here, so that's something. There's a Weak Stone Subjugation as, some fine interaction, but you don't want to load up too much on the enchantment-based interaction. So, we have 2 of the Prison Sentences, the Static Net in white that we know we're going to play. So Weak Stone Subjugation doesn't add a ton there. I've also not been super happy with Scatter Ray, with the amount of Power Stones running around in this set. You often can pay the 4, to be honest. Or with Unearth, you counter something and they still get to bring it back a little later to hit you or get an ETB effect, that type of deal. And then finishing out the blue, a bunch of other cards I'm not that happy with. I do like Keeper of the Cadence myself for some fun, never deck style strategies in draft. In sealed, I'm a lot less interested in that. Double Wing Commando could be good for a more aggressive style of deck, and it's a soldier, so we might end up doing that with blue-white. We'll see. I'm not really thrilled about this blue, which is a bit of a bummer because, as we remember, we have Urza, Prince of Krug, and now I'm seeing that we have a Yoshin Tactician for that soldier life. So we did have the Air Marshal, we had 2 of the Ambush Paratroopers, so maybe we'll get to have that work out for us. We'll just have to wait and see how that pans out with what our other colors offer. Now, black, seeing some good stuff from black. We have an Emergency Weld to rebuy one of our powerful cards. The better your individual card quality, your individual creature quality is, when we've got, the Dispenser and the Steel Seraph, your opponent's going to be really incentivized to kill those, and you're going to be really incentivized to bring it back. So I like having some recursion there. I also like 2 copies of Power Stone Fracture, provided that we have some sacrifice fodder, whether that's unearthed creatures or Power Stones running around. So having a lot of interaction is going to be key. And Gix's Caress is a card that's proved to be pretty darn good. And again, thinking about the things, you can already see the kind of pool that we have. Imagine that a lot of our opponents or a lot of the other people playing in Arena Open Day 1 are going to have these kinds of decisions of, hey, I want to play my best cards, and my best cards are often going to be pricier, or maybe I'm going to be splashing for them or stretching my mana for them, so they're going to be stuck in my hand for a little bit, or I'm going to need to wait to cast them. Well, hopefully Gix's Caress can snag those best cards out of their hand, or those key pieces of interaction that can make sure the way is clear before we deploy one of our threats. That's also hopefully what we're going to get to do. So I like, recursion, interaction, hand disruption. That's all good. Looking at the rest of black, I like Scrapwork Rager as a flexible unearth card, or not flexible, but really just a nice unearth piece of value. Draw a card, lose the life, and then you can unearth it to get the same. And then 2 more pieces of recursion with No One Left Behind, though I do like that card worse than Emergency Weld. But, depending on the power level of our deck, we could end up running multiples of that kind of effect. And I do like Junkyard Genius, though again, I'm very, very incentivized to play white at this point. So I think it's going to be, what color am I pairing with white? And then we'll have to see what our fixing looks like when we get to the colorless cards to see how much we can stretch our mana base. Do we have stuff worth splashing, etc. Get to red. I'm really not a fan of any of these red cards, to be honest. And one of the things red does the best is be aggressive. Well, none of these cards are that aggressive in terms of, I don't see any 2-drops. To have an aggressive deck in limited, you got to have 2-drops, and we just don't have them here. So I'm not a huge fan of the options we have here for red. Moving on up the curve. Again, not crazy about any of these. Unleash Shell, probably the best of the bunch, to be honest. Blitz Automaton is fine filler aggro, but really not crazy about it. And there's that Junkyard Genius again. So pretty much writing off red at this point. Blue was less exciting. Black probably the most exciting. Let's see what green has for us. Green's got some goods. I like a Blanchwood Prowler. I like an Epic Confrontation. I like a Gaia's Gift and Argothian Opportunist. So 4 of these ain't bad. 3 Perimeter Patrols is a lot, and I definitely don't want to run any of those if I can help it. That card is not that good unless we're like, dedicated aggressive. And then these are all pretty dang good. Obstinate Baloth, 4 mana 4/4, gain some life. More life gain, either 4 mana 3/3s, gain 3, or 7 mana 6/5, gain 6. We already spotted that Awaken the Woods when we open our rares, and we know we're playing white. Yoshin Dissident. If we pair with green, we get that. Though again, a little bit of tension here of like, we've got these bombs and we've got these aggressive cards. Do those all play well together? We'll have to wait and see. Okay, so those are the 5 colors, right? We've got white, blue, black, red, and green. Let's see what our colorless offers us. Well, we know about the Mishra's Foundry, right? Then we've got Evolving Wilds. Pretty happy to see a copy of that. 3 Tocasia's Dig Sites I'm not happy with. I am thrilled to see 2 copies of Energy Refractor. So if we want, though I can't really think about what we would want to splash, if we want to splash, we really could, right? 2 Energy Refractors and 1 Evolving Wilds. Sky's kind of the limit for us. Even Burnished Heart, though. Burnished Heart's a little clunky for me. 3 mana for a 2/2 and then 3 mana to go find 2 lands, put them into play. So it ramps you pretty hard, but that's a lot of mana investment for that as well. So we'll have to see about that. We have a Tower Worker potential and, a Self-Assembler that can go and tutor up that Tower Worker. We only have 1 other Assembly Worker in the colorless cards here. So we've got Self-Assembler, the 5 mana 4/4 can go find that to draw a card. Sometimes just that little bit of value is good enough for sealed. So keep my eye on that. And that's our colorless cards. And just checking on the multicolored cards, again, we have Urza, Yoshin Tactician, Junkyard Genius, and the Dissident. So it's nice that we know we're playing white, and then 3 of our 4 multicolored cards also touch white. So what do we want to do here? Well, let's just check what our rares are. Oh, Defense Grid is the 6th one. Okay, because I remember it said and you have 1 more. Because of the retro artifact thing in Brothers War, you can actually get more than 6 rares. And in paper or on Magic Online, you can get foil cards as well. So you can also get more than 6 rares in regular limited sets. But here, that's how we got the 7th rare. So kind of a junker in that retro artifact slot. What do we want to do? So let's get off of the rares and mythics. And we know we're going to play white, so let's start there, huh? So we'll grab the Power Stone Engineers. Already we have to make a bit of a decision, right, between Engineers and Paratroopers. I'm guessing that I don't want both, because what Power Stone Engineer does as a 2 mana 2/1 dies into a Power Stone. That buys you some time, right? Puts a little speed bump in play for your opponent to have to deal with. And then, we know we have colorless cards. We know we have mana sinks with the Platoon Dispenser and Urza if we end up playing that, which I can't imagine we won't, knowing that we have all that good fixing with the Energy Refractors and the Evolving Wilds. That's going to be a bit more what I'm inclined to play in my 2-drop slot than something that's super aggressive like a 2 mana 1/2 Flash Flyer that then you can anthem your team by dumping 5 mana into it. So just going to grab the Engineers, going to grab the removal, the bombs, the good cards that I know I want to play there. And then we'll see. Now, I think we can, pretty much grab the Urza. Like I said, we know we've got the fixing for that. Let's grab Evolving Wilds while we're thinking about it. Let's grab those 2 Refractors while we're thinking about it. I'm guessing we're going to do Self-Assembler and Tower Worker because Tower Worker is so good with Urza. It's nice to be able to copy, right? Urza's not only going to give all of our artifacts +2/+2, but by paying 6 mana, we can copy another artifact that we have. Being able to copy a creature that produces mana is really nice because every time you copy that creature that produces mana, well, you get to have more mana the next turn to dump into Urza. And then maybe you get to double activate Urza at some point with 12 mana, which is not that crazy in a format with a bunch of Power Stones. So I think I'm going to end up playing Tower Worker and Self-Assembly. Plus, Tower Worker is just fine for us as a 3-mana 1/3 that ramps us into these colorless top ends, has reach. Flying is very good in this set, so I anticipate that that'll be a fine spot for us to be in. Let's go back to white and see if there's any of these cards we want to play. We'll head back to those in a second. Is blue my second color, right? I know I want to play Urza. Is blue my second color? Do I have enough soldiers? No. You can see right here on the right-hand side, it'll even give you your creature types. When you click on the deck details, I have currently 0 soldiers selected. We could play those paratroopers, but I really don't think that's where I want to be at. You know, we could play the wing commandos. I just don't see what blue's providing me other than, you know, some narrow cards and honestly forcing me to do some things with my main color of white that I'm not necessarily sure I want to do. But, you know, I can't only play 2 Power Stone Engineers as my 2-drop, so we're going to have to make something work in that 2-drop slot in addition to what we have right now. So it could end up being Power Troopers and Air Marshal, and we do the Soldier thing. But I'm a little bit more inclined to play the black, right? We already talked about Emergency Well being really good with the bombs that we have. Power Stone Fractures give us more interaction. We've already got, you know, Power Stone Engineers are great because they are things we can sacrifice that die into Power Stones, or they've died into a Power Stone, and we can use those Power Stones for the Fracture to kill something. So my guess is black is where we want to be at. Maximum interaction, maximum hand disruption. I don't think we're going to be playing that Transmogrant Altar, though I do like that card. We get a Scrapwork Rager in, and you can see as we start to add cards to the main deck, Arena's already going to suggest 17 lands for us. That's sort of the generally accepted amount of mana for a limited deck. 23 spells, 17 lands. You can mess around with that if you've got you know, a really high curve or color requirements or a lot of mana sinks, a lot of places to put mana. Well, you can play 18 lands. If you have a really low curve, if you don't have a lot of places to put your mana, if you don't need to splash around, if you have a lot of cheap things that draw you cards or some cheap spells that also tap for mana, well, then you can maybe cheat on some lands, go to 16 or 15 lands. But we'll start in that 17 land realm. And honestly, for splashing blue already, Combat Courier is not that bad. Anything with Unearth is a really good card here, right? Like, we know we're going to splash blue. It's not going to be that tough for us. And that gives us a body to sacrifice to Power Stone Fracture. Gives us something to do with our Power Stones in general. So I'm not mad about playing the Combat Courier. I don't much care for the rest of blue, though, as much as I'm going to hover over these cards. I don't think, like I said, I don't think a Weak Stone Subjugation is worth a splash. I definitely don't think the Scatter Rays are worth a splash. And now we've got actually quite a bit of interaction in this deck. 2 Prison Sentences, Static Net, 2 Power Stone Fractures, plus 2 Gix's Caresses, plus a way to rebuy our powerful cards like Urza or Platoon Dispenser or Steel Seraph. So we're up to 37 cards here. It's just going to be about finessing what are our final few includes. Do we want to play No One Left Behind as another way to rebuy one of our threats? Do we want to play Deadly Riposte? Or honestly, is Yoshin Medic a bad idea here as a 3-mana 1/4 lifelink? Like, it just is a little speed bump. That's all we need. We just need some things that buy us time while we're interacting with our opponent's cards, drawing cards ourselves, and then deploying our really tough to deal with threats like Dispenser and Seraph. I think those medics are what we're going to end up running, but we're just doing a quick cursory check through the rest of the colors, seeing if there's anything else, you know, because we could even double splash. With Evolving Wilds and 2 Energy Refractors, we have a lot of flexibility. Maybe, honestly, if we head back to green, maybe we play... Is it crazy to play some of those Boulder Branch Golems, right? The 7-mana 6/5 that gains life when it comes into play? Because we could play that as another expensive artifact. And then maybe we can play it cheaper with our Energy Refractors. Is Yoshin Dissident a card that we want to splash. We do have a lot of artifacts, right? But it's a little awkward as a 2-mana 1/1 on the splash, right? You really want your cards that you're splashing to be worth stretching your mana base for, even when your fixing is as good as it is in our deck here with 2 energy refractors in the wilds. We just really want to make sure that our mana base is super duper good. So we go ahead and add 1 medic. Looking. 39 out of 40. Honestly, this is a spot where we could play 24 spells and 16 lands. But I'm struggling to find even cards I'm happy with playing. And sure, we could play a Gixian Infiltrator or just a random 3-mana 2/3. But I'm going to land on those 3-mana 1/4s. And you do want to take your time with these kinds of decisions. I think you really want to make sure, because like I said, sealed pools, there's a right build, honestly. And finessing, like, not landing on the correct 2-color pair, I think, is disastrous. But also not landing on the correct, final 5, 4, 3 cards that you're including could be the difference between a deck succeeding or a deck stumbling. So I think these kinds of decisions are what you want to do. And sometimes your pools are a lot more complicated than this. We sort of had a little bit handed to us of, well, you've got a couple really powerful cards in white, and you've got 3 really good removal spells in white, and you've got some defensive creatures in white as well. Well, that's just going to decide where our first color is, and then we'll figure out what we can pair with that. Plus, we also got fixing. Like, this is definitely an above average sealed pool, to be sure. But that's the kind of things you want to be looking for. And sometimes your sealed pools offer you multiple builds. You're like, well, I could be red-green, and I have a little bit more raw power, but I don't quite have as much interaction as I would like. I also have a good black-white deck, but that black-white deck, suffers from, I lose a little bit of power, but I get a lot more interaction. And from set to set, those kinds of pools or those kinds of decks from those pools might succeed more or might succeed less. Figuring out my mana base here. So this is 15 lands. We'll go up to, I think we're going to go up actually to 9 white sources. Because if you look at, I've got 3, black spells in my 2-drop slot. But I'm not casting those on turn 2. I'm not casting Emergency Weld or Power Stone Fracture on 2. I'd like to cast Gix's Caress on 3 most likely, but it's not even that disastrous if I don't. I really need to have white sources in my opening hand. And I am going to, like I said, I am going to splash this Combat Courier along with the Urza. If we weren't splashing Urza, obviously I don't think Courier is good enough to put an island in my deck, but because we know we want to play Urza and we've got the Evolving Wilds and the Refractors, I think Courier is good enough. So I think we've got the deck here. And I don't think there's any other deck to take a look at. Ideally, your pools would have, well, let's save this, and then maybe we'll take a look at red-green, or let's save this, and let's take a look at what white-blue looks like. Is it better to do white-blue splash black? Do I want to add another recursive spell given how powerful a lot of my creatures are? Our creature count's just not high enough, I think. And we've got a lot of good value. My one worry is that we might flood, right? We're playing 17 lands plus the 2 energy refractors. So that's a little bit of air. So I think there's one final thing that I'm going to decide to do here that I wasn't really thinking about. I'm still eyeing that Boulder Branch Golem. I remember doing that. There's one last thing that I'm going to do before we decide to run with this deck. And this is going to be our deck that we submit. And that's actually going to be to play the Mishra's Foundry. And there's a couple reasons. One is, I think this is just straight up good for us because our mana is so good. I think this solves that little bit of flooding problem I was talking about, which is that I get to have effectively a spell from a land slot. So I was worried about flooding a little bit with 17 lands plus a refractor. Well, I can still do 17 lands, but one of those lands is a mana sink, is a creature I can trade off with, and even has some synergy, right? Because I have 2 assembly workers in the deck with Self-Assembler and Tower Worker, and I've even got Urza to give it +2/+2. So I can activate it with Urza in play, and it's a 4/4 instead. So I do think I'm going to end up putting that in, and I believe I end up putting that in over a swamp, keeping that source or that number of planes as high as possible. So we keep our number of white sources high. I really don't want to have to use Evolving Wilds to go fetch a Plains, right? Really want to be able to use that Evolving Wilds to fetch an island as much as possible. And so we can bring that Foundry in. And five swamps, plus Evolving Wilds, plus 2 refractors, plus the fact that most of our black cards do not have to be cast on curve. I think that's totally fine. So let's bring in that Foundry and go ahead and cut one of those swamps. You can see I don't know. I mean, my knee jerk is to go down, but I don't need 6 swamps in the deck. I just don't. So there we go. That's the deck, and we'll see how it runs through the Arena Open Day 1 Gauntlet. All right, here we are for game number 1. This is going to be a keep, right? Evolving Wilds can go fetch a blue source for us, and yeah, we don't have a play until turn 3 on the draw, which could be problematic, but again, we've got some nice defensive speed with our 3-mana 1/4 with lifelink, a little bit of interaction for our opponent's hand if we have time for that, and hopefully Urza can bring us back. Now, second Gix's Caress, that is not an ideal draw, but we do have a number of cheap things in the deck as well that we might be able to find, and the Tower Worker can also help us double spell, so let's not forget that. So go find an island, opponent drops a forest, we draw another Yotian Medic, not mad about that, play a Plains and immediately pass as we have nothing to do. Swamp from the opponent. And they play an Argothian Opportunist. So nice that they didn't have a play until turn 3, and I'm actually going to go ahead and fire off this Gix's Caress. We have a number of options, right? We could play a Yotian Medic, 3-mana 1/4 lifelink, blanks 3-mana 3/2 quite nicely. But if they have any kind of removal or combat trick, things are going to snowball for them quite a bit faster than they will for us. So the reason I like playing the Caress here is twofold. One is that we get to see what's going on upstairs. So if they're ramping to something powerful that's 5 mana, that's an artifact with this Power Stone, well, maybe we get to snag it. We also get to have a Power Stone in play, and we have a Tower Worker. So we get to, if we get to 5 lands on a future turn, then we can play Tower Worker plus Yotian Medic and use all of our mana and double spell. So I want to try and set that up. So let's Gix's Caress for now, see what the opponent has, and we see 4 creatures. And nothing that they can cast immediately that's super tough, right? The Gnarl Root, 6-mana 5/5, the Goring Warplow, 6-mana 5/4, or 2-mana 1/1 with Death Touch as a prototype. Trenchstalker, 5-mana 4/5, but they can't cast that yet because they can't use the Power Stone. And then a Gixian Skullflayer is just a derpy 3-mana 2/3. So I'm not particularly worried about anything here, right? If they had like a combat trick or a removal spell or something they could immediately cast next turn that was a problem, then I could snag it. But I feel like these are okay to take a look at. I'm definitely taking one of these expensive cards. My guess is the Trampler is the scariest to me because the rest of the things, like the Warplower, the Trenchstalker, I can, in theory, like find some stuff to chump block with or, multi-block. I don't know. Maybe the Death Touch card should be scaring me a little bit more, and I do end up taking the Trenchstalker away from them because, that's the cheapest of those 3 largest threats. So, they go ahead and drop their 4th land. They attack us with the Opportunist. And we won't dive deep into each of the decisions in all these games, but I think the ones that are tough when we've got multiple options or of what we can play or what we can take from our opponent's hand, I think it's worth chatting about. So we know that they could have double spelled, right? They could have Skullflared plus played the Warplow as a 2-mana 1/1 Death Touch there. They chose not to. So we draw a Combat Thresher here. Now, I'm not ready yet to drop Urza, Prince of Krug. And I also am not ready to fire off another Gix's Caress. I think it's nice to just play a Yotian Medic here that can bounce off of one of these creatures and gain us a life. So to stem the bleeding a little bit as we start to set things up. And hopefully we can draw a 5th land here and then be able to do exactly what I said, which is to double spell with a 3-drop and an artifact 3-drop. We get a Thraxodemon from them, which can spend mana, 2-mana 2/2, pay 3, tap, sack an artifact or a creature to draw a card. Not sure why the opponent, maybe they got a little nervous of our single white mana there. I'm not sure why they decided not to push. They would have only pushed 1 damage, right? We block Medic to the 3/2, take 2, gain 1, take 1, but still probably worth doing in my mind. We do draw that 5th land, drop another defensive 3-mana 1/4, and just line up that Tower Worker to get maximum mana online. Probably thinking about firing off Caress next turn plus Urza, or Caress plus Thresher. We'll see what we end up wanting to do in that respect. Opponent plays Steel Exemplar. It's just a 5-mana 4/4 Trampler. They don't have the 1 or fewer colors to cast it with. So we're going to go ahead and drop Urza. Or Caress and see if they've got something else. Oh, they drew a Go for the Throat. Destroy target non-artifact creature. Glad we grabbed that before dropping the Urza. Not that they would have been able to fire that off. They were tapped out. But next turn they could have killed it. So now we get the Urza in play. We've used all of our mana. We have 6 lands plus the Tower Worker plus 2 Power Stones. So we can activate Urza. We can cast Combat Thresher. Opponent attacks us with the 4/4 Trample. That's totally fine by me. They can drop a 6-mana 5/4 Death Touch with the Warplow. And hello! There's a Platoon Dispenser. We'll start off with Thresher as a little baby. So, right, we could have cast it huge and would have been a 5/5 double strike. But by just using the 3 mana, guess what I get to do? Well, I leave up 5 lands plus Tower Worker. So that's an Urza activation. And I get to copy the Combat Thresher to get another 3/3 double strike and draw a card. Pretty excited about that. Opponent drops their 6th land. They play the Gnarl Root Pallbearer. That's a 6-mana 5/5 Trampler. Gonna give something +1/+1 until end of turn. Goes to the Steel Exemplar. And unfortunately for our opponent, they do make the attack here. They might have missed the onboard activation here of Urza. Gives us another 3/3 double strike. 2 of those lined up on the Exemplar is going to deal 6 damage of first strike damage. Eat that Exemplar, and we've drawn a card along the way, and I just feel, we're miles ahead. We're ahead on board. We've got 4 cards in hand. We've got a mana sink in play. We can just keep drawing cards and making 3/3 double strikers as well. We have plenty of time in that respect. Looks like I decide to play the Platoon Dispenser, which will start being a free source of card advantage, right? Draw a card at the end of your turn if you have 2 other creatures in play. Well, we definitely have that. Plus, we now have 4 mana up to make a 1/1 soldier with the Dispenser. See what our opponent does. And we're not are we out of the woods? Oh, Epic Confrontation. So Urza down here. Slight bummer, I would say. Because now our stuff is small, like the Threshers become 1/1s. But our 4/6 still holds off most of the things in play, and they decide not to attack with the Warplow. Drop another land. Let's see how much mana we have. 4, 5, 6, 7 lands, 2 Power Stones plus Tower Worker. So that's 10 total, so we get to drop Engineer, and then we can just double activate Platoon Dispenser. Bit of a standstill. We don't really have attacks, but we're obviously accruing a lot more value than our opponent. So we draw another land end of turn. They go ahead and sacrifice their Power Stone to draw a card. Now 2 fresh cards for our opponent, 1 from that Thraxa Demon and 1 from their draw step. Killzone Acrobat. Killzone Acrobat makes me realize, hey, I'm at 13. I'm not sitting that pretty on this mountain of 1/1s that I'm making with my dispenser. Killzone Acrobat sacrifices a thing. I can't really block that effectively. I've got the Tower Worker, but I do have Deadly Riposte. 2 mana, deal 3 to a tapped creature. So if they decide to attack, ooh, that's right. I actually have a lot of removal in this deck, and there's 1 piece in Prison Sentence. And I go ahead and deploy that on the Thraxa Demon first, because Prison Sentence specifically says the enchanted creature can't attack or block, but it also says that it can't activate its abilities. So we do that to Thraxa Demon first, so they can't respond to our removal spells, right? So let's say our opponent went to attack us with Killzone Acrobat, sacked whatever, the Argothian Opportunist. Well, then if we try and kill that in response, well, then they get to use Thraxa Demon to sack the Acrobat, and then they're 2 for 1-ing us. We don't want that, do we? So take care of the Thraxodemon first. Opponent does have 3 mana available. Looks like they are thinking, hey, do I want to sacrifice? I think would be Opportunist. Do I want to sacrifice the Opportunist here? And strangely, they do decide to sacrifice the Killzone Acrobat, which would not have been my choice because the Acrobat on board, at least, just better than the Opportunist. Get to get our Scry on as well. So Scry 2, bottom a land, top another Prison Sentence, keep the action flowing, draw that Prison Sentence with the Platoon Dispenser. Now they have 3 creatures in their graveyard, so they're going to start growing their Gixian Skullflayer every upkeep. You can see that 3 is online in the lower left corner of that card. And we'll go ahead and activate, end of turn, thanks to our Power Stones and our Tower Worker. Another piece of interaction is great. Drop a land. It's so nice to be able to get all this value from our mana sources so late in the game. So now we want to deploy this Power Stone Fracture. And what we get to do with it, you can see I'm trying to figure out what are the threats that I need to handle. Is it the 5/5 Trample? Is it the 5/4 Death Touch? Is it the 3/4 that keeps growing? I don't know. So we go ahead and lock down the Gnarlroot Pallbearer. Go ahead and bottom both of these, I believe. I don't need the Self-Assembler because we already have the Tower Worker. I don't need Energy Refractor. We have all of our colors, and scrying that to the top is basically the same as cantripping. Like we scry that to the top, it's going to cantrip the same as scrying to the bottom and just drawing a card sooner. Here I'm going to take out the 5/4, sack a Power Stone. Awkwardly only leaves me with 3 mana up, not 4 to activate Dispenser. Play the Courier. And I still do have 2 mana to draw. So now I'm basically playing the waiting game until we get to Emergency Weld to get back Urza and then Smash. And oh no! Cityscape Leveler, 8 mana artifact. When you cast the spell and whenever it attacks, destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. Its controller creates a tapped Power Stone token. And they are going to blow up that Platoon Dispenser, so no more stream of 1/1s for me. I can do it one more time, right, with the Unearth, but not that huge stream that we were hoping for. Go ahead and use our final 2 sources of mana end of turn to sacrifice the Courier, and boom goes the Dynamite. There's Emergency Weld. I am gonna, quintuple check here, as you'll see. I do remember being like, is this lethal? Do I have it? Is this lethal? It ends up being super duper lethal, in fact. If I Emergency Weld back Urza, grows almost all of my creatures. They only have 3 blockers, in fact, right? They have to block a double striker, then a 3-power thing, and that's still enough. Now, is it quite enough? A double striker, 3, it's 15. Yeah, it is actually exactly 20, but with unearthing the Dispenser as well, it's clearly gonna do it. And I end up doing this weird thing where I play the Refractor and then realize what I should have done, I think, was, oh no, I don't have the mana because I only had the 1 blue source. Okay. I couldn't have cast Urza plus unearthed the Courier. I think I was just maybe hoping that my opponent would just concede here because they're tapped out, But as I tank, I realized that I'm supposed to just play the Dispenser or unearth the Dispenser and smash all, right? They have to block Dispenser, double striker with their 3 blockers, and that's plenty to get through with 6 3/3s, a 3/5, a 2/1, and 2 1/4s. So perhaps a little bit longer of a game than I needed. Certainly some longer decisions than I needed to make, but nevertheless, get the W with that attack all for lethal. And we're 1-0. All right, game 4, winning the die roll again. Easy peasy, 4 lands, 3 spells. Nothing to do until turn 3, but that's okay. Emergency Weld, not too bad. So we're going to get to either play Yoshin Medic or the Thresher, depending on what opponent does. I think I ended up leading on Thresher here, which I kind of like less. Now that I'm thinking about it, like I know why I played it, right? So that I could draw into something. Platoon Dispenser not being shy in these games. But one of the reasons that I think I would have liked playing Medic there is just in case they have Disfigure. We don't let them use their mana that turn. So I go ahead and attack him with the Thresher. They don't block with their Gixian Infiltrator, which is a 2 mana 2/1. Whenever they sacrifice a permanent, it gets a counter on it. And then we deploy the Rager to draw a card and lose a life. We're curving out. We're beating down. We're loving life. Opponent, I assume, right? It's very hard to have a monocolor deck in sealed, even in a set like this with so many artifacts. But so I'm assuming that they're missing a second color at the very least. And yeah, seeing what they're thinking about. You can see them mousing over both their creature and mine, which can only mean one thing. That's Power Stone Fracture. They sacrifice the Infiltrator. They kill our Thresher. Oh, and then they use Emergency Weld to get back the Infiltrator and make a 1/1. All right, let's attack. And let's... I think we're... Are we going to... Okay, so we self-assembler this turn. Uses all of our mana. That's really important and limited. Gets us to draw Tower Worker. Finally, we don't have to have them both in our opening hand as we have had in the past. Opponent plays Infiltrator and nothing else. And now we get to double spell with some 3-mana plays. Attack in with the Rager and the Assembler. They trade off their 2/1 for our 2/2. Get in for 4. There's Gix's Caress. There's 2 green 2-drops plus a green aura plus another Emergency Weld. The card we get, Overwhelming Remorse. That's a removal spell that exiles. Glad we got that out of the way before playing Platoon Dispenser. They go ahead and weld back the Infiltrator. We've seen this before. Get another 1/1, play another 2/1. Still stuck on mana, no green sources in sight. Oh, right! Steel Seraph's in our deck. So we can play that. We have, 9 mana available to us at the moment? What do we want to do? Well, we can start with Yoshin Medic. Then we can play Seraph for full value, get the Assembler into the air, and we can just win next turn, right? Make that flying, put him to 8, and then we have a 5/4 flyer and then a 4/4 flyer next turn, if all goes according to plan. And it does. 4-0. 4-0. I don't know if I've ever had a run start like this in one of these Arena Opens. All right. Round number 6. We're on the play. Great. We have 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop. Great, though. Our 2-drop is, doesn't really affect the board, so there's that. But we get all of our colors of mana, get to cantrip, get to play a really good card on turn 3, really good follow-up on turn 4, so happy about that. Energy Refractor draws us into Power Stone Engineer. Would have been great that turn, but what can you do? Opponent plays Scrapwork Mutt. And, pitches Audacity. Okay, so here I want to talk about our options because as I was thinking, right, we were going to play Refractor into Seraph into Urza. That was the plan with that opener. But things have changed slightly. One is that our opponent discarded a spell, right? They discarded Audacity, which is a cheap cantripping spell. It's aggressive and they're on the draw, so I understand pitching it there. But I'm going to assume that means, because often, we've seen Mutt already in this run. If you've seen Mutt played already before, you usually pitch a land, right? So then pitching a spell, a cheap spell at that, makes me think, okay, their hand is land light, spell heavy. So if it's spell heavy and it's in red-green is a color combination. It's a lot different if they're white-blue. If they're red-green, they can have Excavation Explosion. They can have Obliterating Bolt. If they hit their land drops, they could maybe have Unleash Shell. They can have Epic Confrontation. They can have Shoot Down, if they get to 4 mana. So there's a lot of things that they can have in this color combination that can answer Steel Seraph right off the bat. And we don't even have a creature in play, so we can't get, a lifelink or a flying attack in like we normally would if we had a 2-drop in play. The other thing is that we just drew Platoon Dispenser. So we have our best cards are in our hand. Urza, Steel Seraph, Platoon Dispenser. So, I said you have a really good reason to not use all your mana, not affect the board, etc., not play your best stuff. I think we could, because Steel Seraph can be played as a 6-drop as well, we could consider playing off-curve here. Play the Power Stone Engineer into Urza, into Dispenser, into Seraph as a 6-drop instead. Because you can see I basically go snap, play the Seraph. Ooh, actually what I'm going to do instead is drop the Power Stone Engineer for all the reasons that I stated. Now, I don't know what's correct. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you want to shoot a comment down in the video below, and say, hey, this is what I would have done. I think it's this. I think it's that. Let me know. I'd be curious to see what folks think, because I'm not confident that this is correct. But my reasoning was that I didn't want to deploy the Seraph for, no immediate value for the smaller portion, given that my opponent's in red-green and I'm anticipating that they have a handful of spells. And that's a color combination that can interact pretty favorably. And then firing off Bushwhack, searching up for a land, makes me think, okay, I'm right. At least about that first part, about them having a land light hand based off the Mutt, based off the Bushwhack. So they go search up a forest. And then let's see what they do. They decide not to attack, okay? And we draw a 3-drop, so we can play, again, we could play Urza, no immediate value, could still die to Excavation Explosion. Well, let's start by attacking, see if they want to trade off. They don't. We're going to keep playing off curve. Now, this I like a little less, like knowing that they were, I think this is a mistake, and I should have played Urza or Seraph. Knowing that they were stuck on lands, though they do hit their 4th land here. Knowing that they're stuck on lands and are spell heavy, I think just, putting pressure on them to respond to what we have rather than, I don't know quite what I'm waiting to do here. Now, I can still, play Dispenser. I get to play Dispenser here, immediately draw a card, which is nice. Then I can play Seraph, immediately get some value, which is nice. I don't know why I didn't attack with the Power Stone Engineer. I think I should have, but then we get to draw off the Dispenser, which is great. Draw into Static Net. Happy to see that. Opponent tanking a little bit. They attack him with the Opportunist. I think I would snap trade with Engineer if that's what they do. The fact they're even thinking about this, and now I just line up the blocks that I think are pretty face up, which is a 1-4 and a 2-1 and a 2-1 on a 3-2. And I'm definitely not risking my Platoon Dispenser at all. And I assume this means they have Giant Growth would be a guess, right? Okay. Engineer down, we get a Power Stone. Yoshin Medic surviving here. Oh, okay. So one of the cards we were anticipating, they do have. And so we didn't play our Steel Seraph into that, didn't play our Urza into that. And now we get a nice little security blanket of Gix's Caress. So let's think about what we want to do with our mana. We'll have 6 lands plus a Power Stone. So we can Caress plus... Well, we could have played Urza, now we can't. So we see what? 2 Golems, Honor Guard, a Strongbow, and a Gaia's Gift. I mean, a bunch of creatures I can deal with. I think the Trick is likely to be the most annoying thing for me to have to deal with. And now I end up playing, not really happy again with how I'm using my mana here. But I guess I know Steel Seraph is in the clear, and we can get a hit of 4 lifelink from the Dispenser. I guess my thought is play Seraph, and then next turn we play Urza, and we're attacking with a bunch in the air, and we should just be able to, end this game really quickly as long as they don't draw into removal, which, they have to top deck because we know the contents of their hand. So I guess that's fair. Slightly less... I wouldn't have been able to... sorry, my bad. Wouldn't have been able to play Caress plus Urza because I needed to do something colorless that turn, whether it was activate Dispenser or play Seraph. So that makes sense. All right, not going to risk the Seraph in combat with the Mutt. We'll take the hit there after they go ahead and unearth it, rummage away the 3-1 Ward 2. And they play Phyrexian Dragon Engine. 2/2 double striker. When they unearth it, they can discard their hand, and if they do, they get to draw 3 cards. Steel Seraph, flying, hidden for 11. They go to 3. And then we still have enough mana left over to play Combat Thresher. But I decide not to, and instead I'll make a 1/1. But this should be all she wrote, I think. I mean, this is just a murderer's row of cards, right? Dispenser, Steel Seraph, Urza, all lined up as they were when we opened our rares. And they do shoot down the Seraph, but It's still lethal, right? We make a 1/1, attack for 3, they block the dispenser. Attack with all 3 creatures, they block dispenser, they still take lethal. All right. 6-0. Alrighty, game number 7. We're on the draw. It's not the best hand in the world, but it's still going to be a keep. We get to go turn 2 Refractor, potentially turn 3 at least Power Stone Fracture to sacrifice the Refractor. Now we drew a swamp, so we get to Caress. They just go Swamp Island, Sigil of Valor, and there is that Never Shy Platoon Dispenser off the top. Drop Refractor, draw into a Plains. Opponent plays their 3rd land. They play a Foundry Inspector, okay? And now for us, we're going to go ahead and just drop that Caress, see what we're working with. Ravenous Gigamole, Weakstone Subjugation, and 3rd Path Savant. I'm not that worried about Weakstone Subjugation, given that it can take down my dispenser, but I still get to draw cards and activate it to make 1/1, so that's not that big of a deal. 3rd Path Savant, they're quite far away from activating that. So I think, make them playoff curve, not make the playoff curve, but, we get to take Gigamole out of their hand, stop them from doing something for all 4 of their mana next turn, or like playing a 4-drop next turn. So, and potentially getting a 2-for-1 with get a 2/3 in play, mill a creature, draw that creature, etc. So I decide to take the Gigamole here in this spot. And plus we have Power Stone Fracture to punish a card like Weakstone Subjugation, which is nice. So they play the Savant, they equip the Sigil, and get to attack us for 4. We draw Plains, and we can it's a little awkward here, right? Because we can play Medic, doesn't really do anything, or I could just play Dispenser. I know they're going to subjugate, and then I can deal with that later. But playing Dispenser sort of forces their hand, right? We know it ties up 4 of their mana for the following turn, and uses all of our mana, keeps it in play. We can start drawing cards next turn. We can use Fracture, like we said, etc. So that's what they do. They hit us for 5. We're going to go to 11. A little bit of trouble. Less trouble. Okay. Here's a 5-mana 4/4 that's going to draw us into the Tower Worker. We've drawn these in a nice order. It started off a little rocky in those first few games, seeing them together, but drawing the Self-Assembler quite a few times, especially getting to cast it off a Power Stone when we only have 4 mana. Not quite the case here, but still going to open up some double spelling. And there is a big bada boom. Trench Stalker for the opponent. That's a 4/5. Got a snap trade here with Foundry Inspector, attacking with that Sigil. Here we have 6 mana plus a Power Stone. So we go Tower Worker. And getting a bunch of bodies in play here is nice, because we'll get to start to draw off the Dispenser. And I do have to be mindful of the 3rd Path Savant here, right? Want to make sure I kill that before they get to 7 mana. Don't want them drawing 2 cards. So the question is, are we going to block Sack with Courier? Are we going to play Medic? And it looks like my plan is to block Sack. Steel Seraph is an awesome draw. Go ahead and put the Sigil on the Stalker. Get a +1/+1 until end of turn, because they have 1 other creature. We go for the block Sack. Draw into another Plains. Not ideal, but whatever. They have a Combat Courier. Okay, so now they have an ability to draw 2. Turn that Trench Stalker into a Death Touch lifelink. What do we want to do? Now 7 mana plus Tower Worker plus the Power Stone. Still don't quite have to kill this 3rd path, right? And because we decided to go for the big 6 mana play, they get to Scatter Ray it. We only have 3 mana left, and now I'm sort of left figuring out what to do. I could Weld back the Seraph. I could just medic, which uses all of my mana, so I kind of like it, but then I'm signing up to take the hit from the Stalker. I could Power Stone Fracture the Trench Stalker, but then I'm still taking a hit from the Savant, and then I still have to deal with the Savant later. It's a tough turn. I think this might be the only time I actually rope. Yeah, it didn't quite fully rope, so get the medic down, use all my mana, draw the card off the dispenser, because we have 2 other creatures. I don't think I'm going to chump with the medic. If that was the plan, then I should have played Weld. Take 6 here. 6 lifelink, because they're going to sack Courier, I would imagine. And as soon as I see that 6th land, I know that Power Stone Fracture has to be part of my plan for the following turn. There it is. Okay. So we know we're doing that. What am I sacrificing? That I'm not sure. Prison Sentence is nice. So we could just double answer here. Prison Sentence the Savant? Is that better? So I could just keep chumping this Trench Stalker, right? Prison Sentence does let me scry, so that's something. So we Prison Sentence the Stalker. Bottom the Swamp, top the Thresher. I could Unearth Courier and sack that. I could sack the Dispenser. I could activate Dispenser, use the Power Stone, and then Fracture the Savant, sack the Power Stone. Or I could just sack the 1/1, considering I got things like sacrificing a land here effectively with Dispenser and Thresher, etc. But decide to just go for the double removal. Not sure why I needed to make the 1/1 on my turn, but I think it's because I think at the time I thought I was going to sacrifice it, and then I decided better of it. And I'm feeling quite stable here. Now, in need of another piece of interaction, but otherwise doing fairly well otherwise. All right, Emergency Weld back the Seraph. Got Bodies for Days. No attacks. Deadly Riposte. Deadly Riposte luckily didn't show up very often, but also when it did, we were just facing 4 toughness creatures all the time. An opponent just is off it. 25 life concede, and we are headed to day 2 of the Arena Open to draft on a clean 7-0. So let's take a look at that deck one last time and see how it worked so well. A thing of beauty, really. I mean, just curved out. We saw everything, I assume, right? Like I said, Deadly Riposte, maybe the only card in the whole list we never cast. The Self-Assembler Tower Worker package was nice. Little bit of value from that Combat Courier was nice. The Mishra's Foundry played out really well. Obviously, the stars were Steel Seraph, Platoon Dispenser, and Urza, really working well together. Perhaps not as well as we saw in Game 1 ever again, and then just a ton of removal. So bombs, removal, fixing, curve, all considerations you want to make for sealed. And I really hope that the next time you crack open a sealed pool, your deck looks as good as this. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.